I would like to invite back up to the stage Miss Sima Vasa, co-founder and chief evangelist author of Paradigm Sample. She's going to chat with some millennials. And the name of this session is Let's Get Real, Meet the Millennial, and learn about some of the importance of this group, some of the confusions about this group, and some of the benefits about this target. Thank you, Ms. Sima.
Where are my millennials?
Where are your pianos here? Oh, look, they're back there.
So I guess I can give a quick intro. Should we keep going? Intro? Okay. So one of the reasons I suggested this topic is because millennials impact us in two ways, probably more than that. But from a panel engagement perspective, respondent perspective, millennials are a group that are highly sought after. And we continue to hear about the fact that they're dissatisfied, they don't like the surveys, and we have low response rates. That's one piece of it. The other piece of it is, as an entrepreneur and as an owner of a company, recruiting and retaining millennials is critical. And I see it every day in terms of the lack of understanding or empathy for different generations within the organization, and the challenges that we have to recruit and retain millennials on a daily basis. So we thought we'd bring up some millennials from our industry. Come on up, guys. And ladies. Do we have the infograph, or I don't know who has the PowerPoint. Rachel, is there an infograph? Oh, there you go. Thank you. I'm going to let these guys introduce themselves in a moment. But just to kind of reiterate the importance of us trying to figure this out, currently, there's about 1 in 3 employees in the workforce today are millennials. And by definition, it's who falls into the age category of 18 to 34 today. Millennials have surpassed the baby boomers, so I think that happened last July, a big milestone. And by 2020, millennials will be 40% of the workforce, which is huge. And as we continue to think about how we grow our organizations, how we continue to grow our panels, we need to understand and have a real conversation with our millennials in the industry to determine how do we continue to evolve the relationship. So with that said, I would like each of the panelists to kind of introduce themselves, give a little bit of background on your role, and anything else you might want to add.
Sure. So my name is Leanna Wood. I'm the director of the online fieldwork department at Penn, Schoen, Berland, based in Washington, D.C., and I've been working in market research for about 4.5 years now.
Great.
My name is Aaron Palmer. I'm the head of sales at TapResearch. I spent 6 years at Service Sampling International cutting my teeth in the industry, and now I run a sales team and the ops team at TapResearch.
I'm Adam Slater. I'm a director at the Glover Park Group. It's a strategic communications and government affairs firm. I manage their field work there. I spent 7 years working in the political polling field. And outside of work, I have a 4-month-old son at home and a 2-year-old female canine child as well, named Sima.
Hi, everybody. I'm Cristian Enriquez. I'm the business developer for Netquest USA. It's an online data collection company. And the accent is not fake. I'm from Chile originally. I've been living in the US for like 5 years, and it's how long I've been in the industry as well.
So a couple of caveats. We had 2 prep sessions for this, and I will tell you this group is very vocal. And I have encouraged them to be vocal, and it's fair game to ask any questions in terms of the panel. In fact, they requested that we ask a few canned questions that we've already kind of discussed, but we really want to open it up to the session to ask Q&A, and if you don't have questions, then we have tons more to ask as well. So starting with, we continue to hear about work-life balance, work-life integration, and life itself, as characterized by millennials, a term that they desire in their work and general life. Do you agree with this characterization? And in your own words, what does that really mean? How do you put context around that concept? We'll start with Leanna.
Sure. So I think work-life balance is something that's really important to our generation. But I don't think in the traditional sense where we want to come in, we want to do 8 hours, then we don't want to think about work again until the next day. We don't really shy away from working hard. We're hungry. We want success. but we want the flexibility to be able to balance that with our lives in more of a blend. So for me, if I'm sitting at the office at 7 o'clock, I have a study that I need to launch, I can do that from my phone just as well as I can do it sitting at my desk. So it's important to me to work for a company where they trust me enough to think that I will do that on my own time and doesn't require me to sit at a desk, and will build those tools that I need to be able to do this mobily.
Great.
Yeah, so I have a different definition of work life and life, I suppose. I think the key for me is to really define yourself with your own passion. And one of the things that I learned when I first graduated was that we as a generation can't rely on companies necessarily to provide our financial futures and success. I don't have any reservations that there's not going to be Social Security when I grow up. There's not going to be government. I'm not relying on the government to help me, just as much not relying as a financial advisor to tell me how to take care of my own money. So I started my investment company on the side just because that intertwines with my real work with TapResearch, and that actually helps me motivate and do more on both sides, and it keeps everything flowing and gives a lot more purpose, which is I think the idea of everyone's existence. And I think without having a defined success within ourselves, that's when we start to deteriorate into what can I take from a company instead of what can I give.
Yeah, and I think kind of as a new husband and newer father, family time is a big part of it.
Yeah.
And time is limited, and sleep is also limited. But I think it makes us, as a generation, really have to manage our time well and think about how we manage our time well. Every minute is going to have to fall into an area. But that could be as simple as checking your Facebook feed or checking your Instagram feed or checking your Twitter feed, making sure that you're staying up to date in what's happening in the world around you, in your industry, trying to make a name for yourself in the industry and at your company. So and in addition to other things you're doing. Right now I'm finishing up my MBA at Johns Hopkins, and putting that on top of everything else that I'm doing, I know a lot of people have outside interests too, that just makes things more complicated. So we have to be really strategic and really thoughtful about how we're spending our time, who we're spending our time with, and how much we're giving to all the different things we want to play in.
Yeah, I mean, and to add to that is also that we are kind of like lucky enough that we have a lot of opportunities, and there's a lot of things that we can do or we can choose to do. So I think that our generation is very keen on, you know what, I'm not just going to take a job just to take a job. I'm going to take something that I really believe in, that I want to do, that I'm going to put my time, my effort, my energy on it. And it's something like you kind of combine both. It's your work life, but at the end of the day, it's your life. Mm-hmm. I mean, we were talking about this last night, and a lot of people make their social living out of their workspace nowadays. I have friends that their godfather or their son's godparent or whatever came from work, because we choose to be on an industry or a company or a sector that we like, or something that we feel passionate about. We don't just go to a job and be like, okay, this is what I have to do for the rest 45 years of my life, right?
Yes.
I mean, we are in a lucky position that we can choose to do those things, but at the same time, I mean, we know that we have to push harder than ever. But at least we have that choice.
Do you still think there's a perception that, if you're at your desk early in the morning and you leave late, 6, 7 o'clock, that's still good? Or do you still feel that a lot of people, your employers, are still saying, oh good, he or she is a hard worker because they're at their desk? Versus what Leanna said, I can check my phone, I check on the weekend or whatever. Where are you seeing kind of those lines in terms of perception?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes to the concept of big company, small company, and just how it's being run. At my previous employer, and I loved SSI every minute of it, but that was a perception.
Right.
It's an old company, and even the millennials like myself who were in charge, we were saying, oh, you're not at your desk at 8, so you must not be doing your job. Right. And juxtaposed to now where I'm remote and I'm managing people who are at the headquarters, they don't have any tabs to keep on me, really. So I think that's the area where companies can become more competitive actually to recruit.
Right.
Because I don't think that's a true statement anymore. I mean.
Yeah, and I believe that at the end of the day, I think we're more task-oriented, or goal-oriented. Yeah. So if you get your job done, doesn't matter where from. I mean, in this industry especially,
Yeah.
you can be in China and you can be doing your job. I work for a company that our headquarters in Barcelona, and I've been lucky enough that we can travel and I can work remotely. I've been working out of our Chile office for 3 weeks. I still have my meetings. I still have my calls. I still do my due diligence. So I think that little by little, I'm not saying that we're quite there yet, but little by little, employers are realizing that we are much more of a, okay, if I have a goal, I'm going to do it, no matter where I am.
But
I just got to do it.
I think there's still the optics that are there.
Yes.
Because I think that as there is kind of a divide between older millennials and younger millennials, and as we kind of emerge into leadership positions in our organizations and throughout the workforce, it's really up to us now for us to set the good example for those entry-level employees to make sure that we're showing up on time so that we can set the expectation that they show up on time. Whereas there may be trust that's incumbent upon what we've been doing, that trust may not exist for someone to be able to get their job done when they're outside the office. So it's a function of trying to have it both ways.
Right.
And I think that can stretch us pretty thin in terms of trying to manage projects and also beginning our leadership careers with staff to be able to make sure that we're molding them in the right way.
Right. How, as an employer, flipping the coin in your perspective, how should an employer view loyalty and perceive that you are loyal to the company you're working for, plus you have all these outside interests, projects, not hobbies, but truly kind of career-driven projects or professional projects. How should an employer view that?
That's a good question. I think it should be encouraged because I think the worst employee is a non-passionate or someone without purpose. And if it's discouraged to pursue outside interests, then you're just fostering the environment where you're going to get someone who is going to become burned out. So by encouraging learning sessions and taking people in to learn the different sides of the business, I think it actually promotes a better employee satisfaction and an overall corporate structure, personally.
I think mentorship is extremely important. I think that's one thing that's really overlooked. I feel like a lot of managers look at millennials and rather than trying to think about how they're bringing creativity to the table and working a little bit differently, they mistake that for having to making sure that they're either removed or unengaged and either micromanaging or being a little bit too far away. So I think that managers, when managing millennials, really need to think hard about understanding how to mentor rather than manage, and being creative in terms of helping the millennial generation use their creativity, but also ensure that they are getting the job done too.
We want to learn together.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'll only stop you because and we discussed this. A lot of people say that our generation is not loyal. I think the complete opposite. I think that we're very loyal, but we're more loyal to us as an individual, as we really want to do something that makes a difference. And the way that a company can create or that can help to that loyalty is by giving us tasks. Just let us do our thing. And I'm completely agree with you on the mentoring thing, but very distinctive to don't micromanage us.
Yeah.
Like, I think our generation, we don't think that we know it all. I respect a lot experience, and there's a saying in Chile that the devil knows more for experience than for being a devil. It's like, I know, like if you have 40 years of experience, you have 40 years of experience.
Right.
But let us do our thing, right? Give us tasks, give us goals. We will deliver, and just don't micromanage, and be clear on the tasks. One of the things, and we've been talking a lot about transparency. If we talk about it, let's be transparent.
Right.
Let's just not only talk about it. Let's be transparent.
And I think the elephant in the room in terms of loyalty is that people try to have people come into the organization and then they leave. But I think from our perspective, it's really the only way that we might be able to advance our career or get paid more money. So I think that without that's kind of how we see those things going. The point you made earlier, the days of working at a company for 40 years and having that be your company are over, because there's so much more opportunity out there, particularly in this industry.
And I also think a lot of our loyalties now are more relationship-based than to your company. So if you have a boss that you loved and he goes somewhere else and he offers you a job, you're going to think about that because you trust that person and you know that you work well with them, rather than a company which is always changing and always bringing in new people.
And another topic is like what a lot of people, I think, and I read an article about it, it's like a lot of companies out there try to do loyalty by giving some perks, like, oh, we have a ping pong table, or oh, we have a pool table. Like, I mean, those things might help, but it's not the culture. That is not the real culture. And as much as a lot of people out there think that that kind of like will trick us and will kind of like, okay, well, you know what, I'm going to go with that company because they have a ping pong table. No, I mean, we're not the smartest maybe, but we're kind of smart. Like, we know that that's not
It's not the
gonna be
ping pong table.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. So I mean, it's a both-way street.
Yep.
Communication is always a both-way street. If you want our loyalty, be loyal to us. It's the same thing. Now information, it's right there. We know what is going on within the company. We know what is going on within the industry. We know what our competitors are doing, our clients are doing, our clients are doing. So if we have all that information, just like don't hide things within the company.
So I think you made a really good point yesterday about loyalty as it relates to respondent engagement and transparency. Can you speak to that a little bit? Because obviously you guys are highly sought after to do research, and it would be great just to speak your opinion about how do we engage millennials.
I mean, I think that one of the key elements is, again, communication. We are in social media 24/7. We love to communicate, maybe not face-to-face anymore, or maybe not on the phone, but we're always communicating. And the way that you guys can, or us, can keep us engaged is, if you're going to do a 25-minute study, just tell me that it's going to be 25 minutes. Don't be like, oh, I want to hear your opinions. It's going to take 5 minutes. You're 25 minutes in. You're like, this was 5 minutes. This is not 5 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And another thing is that we love to give our opinions. We created Yelp. We love our reviews. We like those things. But we like to give opinion on what we care. If I don't like cars, let's say, and you send me a survey about cars, you're not going to have my attention for more than 5 minutes. But if you have myself profiled as a sports guy and you send me a survey about football, soccer, real football, you're going to get my attention, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to give my opinion. I'm going to voice it.
I think that to that end, researchers really need to do two things to be able to incorporate more millennials into their surveys, because I've kind of struggled here, and I think it's difficult for organizations like mine, which are trying to find the right messaging approach to a lot of to their clients' problems, whether it's a merger and acquisition or a crisis or something like that. So those two things are creative engagement, so things other than the grids, making sure that it's mobile, and then the second part is ensuring that you're not taking up that much time. I mean, we're constantly going from one app to another on our phone. It's returning emails, it's your personal emails, it's communicating with friends, it's checking social media. So being able to find there is time to do surveys within that, but making sure that they're short, quick, creative engagement is going to help drive a better experience for millennials.
I think this goes back to just the immediate session. It's when things are revealed to the respondent, I don't think millennials interact any differently from anyone else right now. I think that we get in trouble when something looks different than everywhere else we interact on the web and within apps, or you're going down a path where you get the feeling where am I downloading spyware on my device, or what's happening? Because there's so much more information out there and we're exposed to so many more things, I think it is just about truly describing the experience and then delivering upon that. And in all senses of the word, I don't think it's that hard of a concept. It's just how do you implement it across all the different research.
And we know that our attention span is shorter. It's
Right.
very short.
Yeah.
So
True stereotype.
yeah, just like
So I have
make it
a question.
interactive.
I have a question. How many of you guys are involved in your companies to to engage millennials and your voice is being heard? Are you at the table, quote unquote, at the table? Are you part of a task force? Like, how much are you guys being leveraged to kind of address the millennial kind of engagement?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I feel like when we do give advice about that, especially I come from the online fieldwork department, no one's really listening to me. They're like, oh, this younger person, she doesn't really know what she's talking about. Like, we've been working with these clients for 20 years, so we're just going to keep doing the things that we've always done. And that can be frustrating.
Yep.
There's certainly a lot of, and I think it stems more not just from engaging millennials, but I think it's on the whole research operation approach, where we're looked at, we're first looked at for ourselves rather than the ideas that are brought to the table. And I think if that mechanism can reverse a little bit, we'll be taken a little bit more seriously, be engaged in some more client meetings, and be able to get our points across. So I'm looking forward. I think time will be the real barometer of that, but I'm looking forward to those days. Change is hard.
I've been lucky enough that the company that I work for, we're pretty much across the board, it's a very young company. So even though I'm a millennial, I'm almost 30 or whatever, I think that my voice, and actually our voice of the young people, it's very much heard of. And it's something that, although it's there, when I was brought in, I had to stand up and say, hey, this is what I want to do, this is what I really want to give to the company. Are you willing to take it or no? And they're like, yes, we're willing to hear you. Okay, now we're going to go. But it's something that we had to, or I had at least, to make a stand at the beginning, saying, I do not like to be micromanaged, and two, I really want to make a difference. I want to create. I want to go out there and be heard. I want to participate in client meetings. I want to say something about the product that it's good or it's not good.
Right.
So I've been lucky enough, and the company's really good.
Yeah, my current firm, I'm fortunate because the entire company is millennials.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a moot question at that point. But my previous company, I think there was a hesitancy to be honest and treated the same way as the other generations. And I think that actually was the mistake, because the part of just the straight neglect is what as Leanna just described, is the most frustrating point. And we graduated, we experienced the financial crisis firsthand before we ever had any stable footing in the world. So we're quite resilient as people. So I think just the fear of saying no and fear of giving negative criticism or whatever leads to neglect by some management, and that's where we get into trouble.
Okay. I'm going to pause for one moment and just see if there's questions in the. Go ahead, Andy.
It's really interesting. Where do you think you need the most help?
Where do we need the most help?
Where do you think you need the most help?
In terms of in the workplace or development? I think Adam hit the point. It's mentoring. I think that we as a generation, we don't think that we're too smart, but we believe in ourselves. I think that we're a confident generation. We're a confident generation, that we think that we can do stuff, and we are trying to do more than to talk more. But we definitely need a guidance. I mean, we were not born and, oh my God, we know everything. Or you don't come out of college and like, yes, I know exactly what sampling is. No, we need guidance. And I think that's for me, that's the key.
Yeah, we're probably overconfident to a fault, I would say. And that's fine. I think we're kind of aware of that. But where I do what my best advice in terms of development is think bigger picture and think how it ties into the overall goals.
Yeah.
And then be able to chart your vision for that and say, here's how I might approach it. But there may be other creative, but be open to other creative ways, because we're probably going to come with about 6 or 7 different ways to be able to solve any one problem, whereas other people might have something that they've done for 20, 30 years that they know works and they know they're going to go that way. So it's kind of that two-way street.
Personally, one of the reasons I chose to leave is because I wanted more exposure to the financing side of a business, something that never would have happened at a big company like SSI. Like, hey, CEO, like, what's happening with investors? That would not. I'm like, my mind is blowing right now, even about that question. But that was part of the interview process. I asked the current CEO, can I be involved with investor discussions? Can I learn more about what AR financing is and how you talk to banks? Because that's something that really interested me. And I think that's a key part of recruitment. So yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, and I think, excuse me, for me, still being so young and still kind of new to the industry, it's important to me to have a mentor or a superior that helps me identify opportunities for growth. And I think there's a lot of things that go on in the firms and behind the scenes that you don't know, but you would like to be involved in if someone tapped you on the shoulder and said, "Want to try this?"
Jacqueline?
So at my company, I think 95% of the staff is millennials, and there's actually quite a few on the very young end of that in their first jobs. And one of the challenges I see as we grow as an organization is that we have a very close-knit culture, and I am a super believer in promoting within and helping people grow both professionally and personally. And then where I run into the challenge is that I have super bright people who are really hard workers, confident, dedicated, all in for the cause, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they know how to be managers. So as I'm scaling the organization, I'm looking for, mid and senior and executive level management, hesitant to bring from the outside because I don't want to interrupt sort of the culture that we have. But also trying to understand how do I get them to that management level, not just smart problem solvers don't always make the best managers.
Yeah.
Any advice for me?
I mean, and you made a point last night. It's about of that feedback and that we're not afraid to receiving that feedback. If you consider that one of your employees is not good a manager, just be upfront and tell them, hey, you know what? I think you're great at your role. This is what I have. This is my plan for you for the next 5 years or 3 years or 10 years or whatever you want to say, and say, you know what, you should work on this, and this is the program that I have for you to work on your skills. Because one thing is to identify the problem, and that's the first thing. But then, as a company, what are you guys doing to help them develop that skill that they don't have? You know what I mean? Because we're gonna do whatever we need to be better, to work hard, give that extra hour. But then what are we getting from the company? Are we getting that extra hour invested on us? Are we getting that mentorship? Are we getting that? And as we pointed out, if we're not getting that from let's say your company, the company right next to you is gonna give it to me. And my loyalty again is to me. You know what I mean? I think that would be my best advice. Identify who that people is. If it's worth investing in, tell them that yes, you are at this level of, you know what you're doing, but you have to work on this. And this is the path for you to work in. That would be my advice.
Yeah, I think identification is really key. I would say that going beyond the traditional investment of your own time, I would probably look at leadership or management seminars that just a handful of your identified people could go to. I think it made a real difference for me when I ran a small department myself, and it just taught me a little bit more about people skills, about providing feedback, about ensuring that people are treated fairly. And I think there are a lot of just common life skills that we may or may not be receiving in college and through growing up. And I think those just need to be reinforced, particularly in the formative years for newer employees. So I would probably, choose 2, 3, whatever your scale is. And there are a lot of different seminars out there. And I'd probably begin the path from there. You can always backstep if something doesn't feel right or work right, but that's probably where I would go.
Another question?
We know that not everybody can be a manager. We know that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
There's 100 employees, there's only one manager. We know that not 100 people
You've
can be
accepted
managers.
that.
Yeah, we know that.
Still like to be our own boss, but
Well, if you all look at me, you'll see I'm not a millennial. Okay.
Wait, no, really?
No, no.
You should be up here.
Okay. You talk about mentoring, that sort of thing. Okay. So it's kind of a two-part question. Do you seek to be mentored? Do you take that step to ask someone sometime? And if you're with a company that the oldest person in there is 34 years old, 35 years old, where do you go to seek some advice in those sorts of things?
Sure. So for me, I always kind of seek out someone that has a job that I aspire to. And it's not necessarily me coming up to them and saying, can we start a formal mentor relationship? It's coming to them being like, hey, I encountered this situation, how would you have approached it? Or if I want to be doing this in 3 years, what should I be doing now? So I think it's much more informal, but I do think we kind of seek out someone we admire and aspire to be like.
Yeah, my biggest thing is the personal responsibility of your own careers, your own financial situations. So I have an aversion to formalized mentorship personally. I don't know why, it really rubs me the wrong way. But once I decide that I want to learn something, you do seek it. I think that's the important part where that's a conversation that needs to be direct to someone who wants to take. Why am I being mentored? Kind of whining. I think everyone kind of experiences that because people still expect I'm going to start a job and I'm just going to be successful. That would be a direct conversation and said, well, you need to step up your game and really take responsibility over it. And mentorship in the formal sense, like Leanna said, is kind of a dying conversation. But once someone asks, I need your opinion on this side of the business or that side of the business, that is a mentoring question, I believe.
For sure, and I think it's also looking for other opportunities to build the relationship. Because at the crux of it, that's what mentorship is all about. I think overall, we would be generally open, at least that's how I feel, generally open to mentorship. I mean, luckily for me, both my boss and I love golf. So we've been able to develop a good relationship through that, and that's helped me to be able to do that. I mean, maybe it's monthly dinners or something like that where you can kind of take people out of their workroom, the typical traditional workplace setting, and be able to build a relationship with them. And I think you'll really be surprised and pleased with what they're able to provide and how much they've thought about the business, maybe more than what's happening on a 9-to-5 basis or 9 to 6 or whatever.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. Me personally, it took me a little bit to ask for that mentorship. At the beginning, sometimes this is a personal opinion, I don't know if I speak for all millennials, but sometimes we feel that I go to a job and it's expected this from me. So I need to deliver that. And if I ask a question, sometimes I will feel like, maybe I'm not up there. But with experience, again, and with being part of the working force and everything, you learn a little bit to, you know what, I don't know everything. I need to ask. Yeah. And it's something that comes with the same experience. Mm-hmm. I don't think that it's a generational thing that everybody out of college say, I can do this. Or I'm going to go out there, I'm going to kill it on the next job. We all think that, right? And it took me a couple of years to say, you know what, I really don't know what I'm doing here. Please, can I have an advice? But then again, when we ask for an advice, and some people make the mistake of talking down to you instead of teaching you, instead of talking to you, but they talk down on you. You're like, no, you got to do it this way. Mm-hmm. You're like, okay, I'm sorry to ask. So it's kind of like a little bit of both, where you want to ask and you want to seek for help, but sometimes they are like, no, it's a ridiculous question.
I do notice that the communication style tends to be more appealing if it's more of a coach, not even a coach, but a partner relationship versus a hierarchy, manager, command and control. For whatever reason, it seems to be it resonates a little bit more, so people don't feel badly for asking the question.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And you see it on the workspace. And nowadays, the co-working, the WeWorks or open space, offices and things like that, it's not because nothing. It's because us as a generation or as a working force, we react better to that. Right. We want to be part of a community. We want to be part of something. We really want to be personal in the communication, but we want to be part of a community.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a question back there. Craig?
And I think reading books, just to get back to your point, sir, reading books also on like encouraging your employees and for you too. Books on leadership, that's been a real help for me. And I think that helps to kind of ground it in a pseudo-academic forum, but not so much that they would be like turned off to it because
I thought you were going to say YouTube.
Yeah, I'm going to say
YouTube.
videos. I'm not a big
maybe.
Not a reader, right? Okay.
I'm going to go with
that's
videos.
fine.
I'm going to go with videos.
That's fine too.
Go ahead.
So the other day I was talking to my son, who's 12 years old, who has a bike, as every 12-year-old boy should have, right? And we're moving from one house to the other, and I said, Chase, why you hardly ever ride your bike? Why don't you get out and ride your bike and go to your friends and play in the neighborhood? And he's like, I did this every day growing up. And he said, Dad, that was way back then. You had to get on your bike to be able to go see your friends. Now I just pick up my phone and we Skype, which is true, right? And you think about the work environment and how we work, and you think about mentorship. You've talked about both a flexible work environment and office environment. You've also talked about, I can go down and work from Argentina for 3 weeks, right? And I'm still as connected as ever. So when you think about how we work, as, so from a startup to large companies, how important is FaceTime to you guys versus growing up as digital natives? You're used to communicating digitally with one another and developing those social relationships, those friendships through digital communication more so than I as a Gen Xer grew up, it was face-to-face communication. So as we think about how we work, how you guys receive that mentorship, how you grow into management responsibilities, how important is FaceTime versus just using digital communication platforms?
I think that FaceTime is a lot more important for the Gen Xers and baby boomers than it is for the millennials. And I think that that's just the way things are. I think that's where people's comfort levels are. I think that we are just so inundated. Everything is so new. We didn't start with computers growing up, but our kids and the subsequent generations will. So I think that the Generation Z, kind of looking forward there, is actually going to do a much better job in terms of time management and in terms of like focusing in on different things and not being so ridiculously, all over the place all the time in terms of their focus than we are. I think that we're going to struggle with this for our entire careers, and that's going to be a benefit and a hindrance to us as we mature.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. I have a different perspective just because I make dozens of sales calls and I talk to a lot of people on the phone, and I know when the person on their side is using their phone, and this is not exclusive to millennials. I'm talking boomers, 60-year-old people, managers, whatever. I know that they're distracted, so face-to-face time is critical for me because I can see you and make sure that you are listening to me. Just by the volume of calls I do, I can sense that even Skype, and you hear the clicking in the background, everyone's pulled in multiple directions and trying to cope with this digital world. So I only try to see people in person because one face-to-face visit is better than 30 sales calls, in my opinion. So that's a different perspective.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. I mean, I think it's key. First of all, thank you very much for thinking of us as young as your kid who's 12 years old.
Appreciate it.
So that's good.
Appreciate
We're good.
that.
No, but I think technology for us, it's key, but it's also kind of like a given. We also did, as Adam was saying, we didn't grow with this FaceTime or anything like that. We grew up also riding our bike to go to our friend's house, but we have had to adjust. So, but we had to adjust in an early stage of our life, where now for us technology is given. FaceTime that's not only for work, just for life. Maybe I'm a unique case in the sense that all my family is back in Chile, so for me FaceTime is, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Skype or FaceTime or technology, because I know that I would miss my family like crazy and I would want to go back. But with those communication technology resources, it makes life, not only work life, but just life easier.
Yeah, and I would say that FaceTime really can change the dynamic of a relationship, which I've noticed this year. This year I made it a point to go to each one of our offices and sit down with the staff there and talk about what they needed, because I feel like coming from an operations role, it's really easy when something's going wrong for these people to just send you a nasty email yelling at you, blaming you for everything that's going wrong. But once you've actually sat down with them and they realize, all right, you're a real person, you're nice, you care about what they care about, they're more likely to pick up the phone or shoot you an IM and be like, hey, I think this might be wrong. How can we work together to fix it?
And if we're mad on email, we're probably not. It's just email.
I have noticed, though, when in meetings, I think Gen Xers are used to building trust, seeing the person across the table face to face. You try not to have as many meetings knowing that millennials aren't crazy about it. But give us your point of view in terms of meeting as a group, brainstorming, face to face. Is that something of value to you, or is it another forum that's better to collaborate in?
I mean, I think that as a generation, we're much more of a collaborative group, and I think that we work better as a group, brainstorming, I can't remember the name right now, but there's a couple of techniques where you just throw in ideas,
Yep.
and sometimes you're going to pick up one and be like, oh, you know what, let's work on that.
Right.
And not only in our generation, but I just think overall it's a better way to work. It's synergy. Two heads thinks better than like one of each.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And I think that it's not only our generation. I think it should be a style of work.
Right.
It's such a tough question to answer
Yep.
because it cuts both ways. I mean, I personally think like when some of my days are really busy, it is just dictated by meeting after meeting after meeting. And where I really only want to do meetings if we're there to make a decision
Right.
about something after we reviewed the information. I'm finding that as I'm managing some of the younger folks on the team, they need to refocus because they're all out in la la land, and we need to bring them back down to earth to be able to make sure that they're working on what they need to work on.
Right.
So you know, I really pushed hard and was successful in getting like a half-hour small junior staff level meeting that myself and a couple others lead every Monday just for a half an hour, because that helps refocus it for the week, helps set expectations and keep everybody on track.
Good. Did you want to add to that, or?
Yeah, I mean, that it is a completely dependent on the staff and how the culture needs to be changed. I think at one point we did away with all meetings because it was just filler and people were not achieving their goals because they're trying to prepare for the next meeting and coming up with words to say just to say them, and it was like it was so apparent that it just made everyone angry. But then when we started hiring more people in volume, there was some value to be added with meetings and a formalized process because that's what they needed. So it is a fluid prospect of just standard meetings, but it's something that I think needs to be decided on maybe on a quarterly basis if we need the meetings. If not, what kind of meetings do we need? That kind of thing, because I think there is a value with in some meeting forms.
Great. Other
Purpose
questions?
of the meeting at the end of the day.
Mendy.
It's a little unrelated to kind of the millennial and upper management and who wants to be their own boss. How do we have less meetings?
How?
Right? Yeah, like something I think about all the time. How do we have less meetings? Because to your point, you
less
get
people, but sometimes you need more people, so sometimes you need more meetings.
So I actually think I have two kind of ideas. One, there's like program management software that you could try to at least have some sort of real-time brainstorm in, where you're actually setting up the different bullet points that might need to be covered.
Slack has it.
Yeah, Slack has that, and Asana, and I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of other tools do as well. The other thing is like, let's just do a quick chat room and just be like, okay, let's run the meeting through this, and while I don't need everybody's attention for a full half hour, maybe we're going to take this from 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock and say, send me all of your ideas, or just kind of collaborate, and then it becomes a little bit more of an asynchronous session, similar to like a online bulletin board or something like that. But you hold it open, you let people kind of talk through, you pull some stuff out of that, and then you're doing other stuff, you're multitasking.
I mean, at the end of the day, like, do you want less meetings? Do you think that less meetings are going to be more productive? Because at the end of the day, it's the purpose of it. So if you're going to have a meeting, just to have a meeting, of course, we don't want that. But if to make a decision, you need to bring in 3 or 4 people because those are the decision makers. You need to meet. You need to collaborate. I think that you need to be aligned on what decision you want to make. So how do we do less meetings? Should we maybe take responsibilities from somebody and make a person to be the decision maker? Or do we need less meetings? It depends. I think it's a tough question.
I understand
I think we do.
I understand the
less
premise
meetings.
though, because I mean we've all sat in meetings where we've talked about the upcoming meeting, and then we meet about that meeting before the meeting, and then it's like
Yeah, that's the thing.
Post meeting about that meeting.
yeah. So I know
We'd like to have a
the
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the background of that question, and
Was there a question here? Did you have a question, Rick?
The difficulty of survey completion rates amongst millennials, which has been a challenge forever. Are we designing surveys, other than the answer, make them shorter, which you can't use, are we designing surveys so you will complete surveys, so you and your friends will complete surveys? Is there something we should do differently in survey format and design?
there's a couple of techniques, and I'll try to keep this very non-plug of my company. There's gamification techniques, but there's a lot of there needs to be methodological testing and make sure that those still deliver the results. I think it's how you engage the person in the first place. So a double opted-in panel and you're recruiting them into a market research environment, that's where I think we lose people there. And that's why you see lower response rates from millennials, because there's so few of them on panels, so they get hammered with invites and surveys. So to get a higher response rate, the supply of the millennials needs to be higher, and that's where you go to apps like we do. We recruit from apps and where millennials are, so that kind of balances the entire thread. And after you do that, I think they'll normalize. I think the survey completion rates will normalize after that.
I think you have a huge amount of drop-off rates too. I mean, I think it's really tough because you want to get the information out of it, but making them shorter is going to help a lot. And I think that we can do that on our commutes in. I mean, there's a Nielsen survey that came out and said 75% of millennials are going to move somewhere else in the next 5 years. And in my own LinkedIn network, I think 27% of my entire network changed jobs in the next year. So there's so much going on that we have to find those little pockets to be able to make stuff work and do it on our terms. That's really difficult. I don't have a great answer, but
I think that from my end, I think there's two things. One, the design of the survey, taking aside the length of it, just make it more interactive or more appealing. A video, audio, or anything that would keep us engaged, because our attention span is really short. I mean, we know that. And then the other thing is the profiling. I think that as a survey company, as a panel company, or data collection, whatever you want to call it, I think that our job is to profile the people, know who they are, understand what are their interests, to give an opinion on. So if I'm gonna, again, to an example that I was giving, if I don't like cars, don't ask me about cars.
Make it relevant.
Just ask me about sports.
Right.
I want to give you my opinion about sports. At the end of the day, we're talking about people. Our panelists are people. We're forgetting. I think that as an industry, we're forgetting a little bit of that. So we gotta understand what do they want to give our opinions. We can shove surveys down the throat just because we want to make money, or they want to make money. They are people that they want to give their opinions. So knowing your panelists is one thing, and doing the survey a little bit more interactive. I think those two key points would definitely help us to be more engaged.
I see a big zero here. Are we out of time, or? Yes? Okay. So I want everybody give a round of applause to the panelists. They did a great job. Thank you.